Requests have come for more videos about public domain stuff, and from that I have to appreciate having free material to research. Thank you. Welcome to my channel, KC, that's me, Carrie Chug the Sledge Storyteller, here to talk about the wonderful world of storytelling and to open up discussion about how we can tell the best stories we can. So, these near 200 videos I've posted have been dominated by superhero lore because I've always had a soft spot for that genre. But what about Kaiju? Around the time I was age 4, I had 3 favorite icons: Batman, Lone Ranger, and Godzilla. Mainly the 70s Godzilla cartoon from Hanna-Barbera, and 2 Christmases in a row I asked for the Godzilla toy that was part of the Shogun Warrior lineup and had no such luck. But I was about 6 when I finally saw Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. I experienced only the 1976 version of King Kong until I was 17 when my parents finally hooked up cable and got to see the original 1933 movie. But yeah, I've always had a soft spot for Kaiju. Now, knowing that I'll make myself out as ignorant, I'll acknowledge the Japanese meaning of the word Kaiju. Google lookup for such is Japanese for Kai, meaning mystery, apparition, specter, or Ju, standing for beast. Now, that broad definition would make for a week-long video to cover all public domain characters that fit that criteria. So I'll go strictly by beings of abnormal size for their animal type. Lots of fun to have here. Now, comes as no surprise that Kaiju are mostly rooted in various animal groups. In fact, while this is about public domain Kaiju, no one can claim any species as an intellectual property. You can beef up any animal you want. You do have to be mindful not to copy an origin story of a Kaiju owned by any publisher or studio, and have anything you create be legally distinct from the original. And now's as good a time as any to say watch Sci-Fi's Asylum movies to see how ineffective Kaiju hybrids are. Now, along those lines, it's interesting how big the creative spectrum for Kaiju has been. Apes and reptiles are at the forefront in our minds, and Kaiju birds and bug Kaiju are pretty common as well. The oldest examples are ancient mythological monsters, the Egyptian Sphinx, Greek monsters like Cyclops, Hydra, Nemean the Lion, Cerberus, and the Minotaur, dragons from all cultures like Tiamat, Quetzalcoatl, Tatsu, Basilisk, and Fafnir. These Kaiju that follow don't date back to the 1920s, which make public domain automatic. Instead, in their case, they have that status because the owners did not get them renewed in copyright when they were supposed to. But now, the novel, not the movie, of King Kong is public domain, but as similar as those two are, I suggest you consult an IP lawyer about how you can navigate that IP minefield. As far as I've been able to figure out through research, the oldest public domain dragon movie is PRC's Flying Serpent, released in 1946. It has a simplistic use of the Quetzalcoatl myth from Aztec mythology. It is a weird B-movie where a guy wants to protect the ancient treasure cave he found and finds a way to direct the flying serpent at any rival treasure claimer with the serpent's feathers. Toho Studios may own Rodan, but 1957's Giant Claw is fair game. No real origin story here, just ambiguous UFO sightings before it's realized that it's a giant but marionette operated would blend in with the Muppets bird Kaiju wreaking havoc on civilization. And a contrived pattern analysis leads to the conclusion that it came from outer space, and the strategy that ultimately knocks out the force shield and brings the Muppet Kaiju to its watery grave. It's all done in simplistic fashion. Simpleton fashion, maybe. Also in the late 50s, writer J. Simons observed the ferocious nature of the shrew on its scale and decided that it's worthy of scaling up for his novel Killer Shrews and his screenplay for the 1959 movie of that same name. Here, people living in a small island are terrorized by giant shrews who came forth because of, maybe you've heard this before, scientific research gone awry. Now, out of all the public domain kaiju movies, the best example of so bad is good is easily Giant Gila Monster, at least to me. As lazily made as its title, I gather that the movie did have a decent reptile wrangler as well as the lizard seemed to move as needed. Miniatures are B-movie grade, so, and the acting and singing. And the Lord said, laugh, children laugh, Lord said laugh, children laugh. Actually, that makes you wish they'd just get back to the acting. But that's public domain. Now, amid that backhanded compliment to Giant Gila Monster, perhaps the most talked about is the one I think has just about the coolest name in all of Kaiju-dom, Reptilicus. Now, personal background here, what's currently Fox 13 in my region used to be a UHF channel, TV 20, and when I was 11 years old, they had a monster movie week aiming for the cheapies. Hammer Films' Dracula has risen from the grave, and The Mummy. Now, along the lines of Kaiju, there was Godzilla vs. Megalon and Reptilicus. Now, after watching it, I went to school the next day to talk with friends about how cool I thought the monster design was, and one of them mentioned how earlier on he saw that same movie also on TV 20, and that was on their movie show called Turkey Theater. Anyway, Reptilicus, it was a 1961 Danish import. The English and Danish versions, directed by Sidney Pink and Paul Bang, respectively. At least officially, the underlying background story is that Pink took the reins of both. Now, I understand the Danish version to be racier than the English version, but there's that feeling that in watching the English version that the Danish actors are acting with English dialogue but struggle enough with English that it impedes their natural flow of acting. And for all the precedents in depicting kaiju with puppetry, stop motion, and actors in a monster suit, Reptilicus himself, you never get away from that feeling like he's a crudely used marionette. And while the premise of regeneration after damage, that's been done so many times, it's handled inconsistently here in terms of its limits and how they can get around that problem to permanently destroy Reptilicus. And also it's interesting how they feature popular Danish comedian Dirk Passer, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, as a security guard dressed as a janitor. Now, imagine taking the 1998 Godzilla movie and tossing in Michael Richards' Stanley Podolsky from UHF again for comedy relief, and how much worse would that make it? But if you watch this, you see potential in finding solutions to the plot holes, depicting the characters in a way that you can take them seriously, and finding better ways of modeling and putting Reptilicus into action. Not necessarily CG, but I'd be interested in a remake with higher quality in story and special effects. Now, the same year that Reptilicus came out, debuted a movie that's not public domain now, but from Charlton Comics. The comics themselves, public domain. Konga, who was not among the characters from Charlton Comics, picked up by other publishers. And so the copyright ran out on it. As the story goes, Konga was a monkey who went under a scientific experiment. Again, that premise, but by Professor Charles Decker, and thus became a chimp and later a gorilla. And there's a side effect in which Konga can read minds and will kill upon evil Professor Decker's command. Now, the whole thing goes out of Decker's control when Konga grows to King Kong dimensions and begins wreaking urban havoc. But the only difference between that and the outline from the comic and what went into the movie using Batman movie Alfred Michael Goff as Professor Decker, is that they don't bother with Konga's monkey stage and start him off as a chimp. Now, shifting from animal kaiju to plant kaiju, any connoisseur of classic movie musicals would readily identify Howard Keel with Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Me, it's the War Wagon, but before either, he was in Day of the Triffids, 1963. A strange meteor shower blinds most of human population on Earth. In turn, a merchant naval officer faced with the task he has to eradicate tall, hostile plants that are eating people and animals. Then there's the creeping terror. So yeah, basically we're scraping the bottom of the barrel and could go a good hour from here to detail so many more. But again, you can build on any animal concept to come up with something entirely new, as well as make any of the aforementioned kaiju into something interesting. But that's my take on public domain kaiju. Thank you for watching. Agree, disagree, or something I left out? Please let me know in the comment section. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. The link to order Sledge number 1 and 2 is in the description below, or you can order Sledge number 1 on Kindle. In any case, you can order it on digital or paper format. Sledge number 3, still working at it. Hopefully we'll have everything completed by the end of this month. But anyway, I'll keep saying it. Let's all look for civility in our world. Let's not be beat down by our differences politically, religiously, orientation, anything like that. And let's get away from that. Let's look at everybody as potential friends, not see everybody with suspicion. Everyone be safe, and God bless.